What if I told you that the one player who could transform Edmonton's playoff destiny is currently wearing the jersey of their Pacific Division rival? What if the grit, the relentless physicality, and the unexpected scoring punch the Oilers desperately crave is sitting right there in Vancouver, waiting to be unleashed? Can the Edmonton Oilers afford to ignore a player who's on pace for a career-defining 30-goal season while bringing the kind of sandpaper edge this roster has been missing since their Cup final heartbreak? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we're diving deep into one of the most intriguing trade scenarios circulating around the NHL rumor mill, a potential deal that could see Vancouver Canucks forward Kiefer Sherwood don the orange and blue of the Edmonton Oilers. This isn't just another depth acquisition we're talking about. This is about addressing a fundamental flaw in Edmonton's construction, a weakness that's been exposed time and time again when the games matter most. Let's cut through the noise and get straight to the heart of the matter. The Edmonton Oilers, despite boasting two of the most electrifying offensive talents the game has ever seen in Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, have a problem. It's not a secret. It's not hidden behind advanced statistics or buried in the fine print of their game logs. The problem is staring everyone right in the face. This team lacks the depth, the physicality, and the relentless forechecking presence needed to grind through a 7-game playoff series against the league's elite. When the Stanley Cup playoffs arrive and the ice shrinks when referees swallow their whistles and every puck battle becomes a war of attrition, the Oilers have consistently found themselves outmuscled, outworked, and overwhelmed in the trenches. You can't win championships solely on skill and finesse. You need players who are willing to pay the price, who embrace the physical punishment, who make life miserable for opposing defensemen every single shift. Enter Kiefer Sherwood, a player who embodies everything the Oilers currently lack. Who exactly is Kiefer Sherwood? For those unfamiliar with Sherwood's journey, let me paint you a picture of what true perseverance looks like in professional hockey. This isn't a first-round pedigree we're discussing. This isn't a highly touted prospect who had NHL scouts drooling over his potential since he was 16 years old. Kiefer Sherwood is an undrafted player who clawed, scratched, and fought for every single opportunity he's ever received in this league. His path to the NHL reads like a blueprint for determination. Sherwood cut his teeth in the USHL with the Youngstown Phantoms, where his relentless work ethic and physical presence caught the attention of NCAA programs. He spent 3 productive seasons at Miami University, playing alongside current NHL players Jack Roslovic and Carson Meyer, developing his game and proving he belonged at higher levels. Despite his collegiate success, no NHL team selected him in the draft. Think about that for a moment. Every single franchise in this league passed on Kiefer Sherwood. But did that stop him? Absolutely not. He signed with the Anaheim Ducks organization and began the grueling journey of bouncing between the NHL and AHL, constantly proving himself, constantly fighting for roster spots, constantly demonstrating that he deserved to be in the world's best hockey league. After stints with Anaheim and Colorado that saw him yo-yo between levels, Sherwood finally established himself as a full-time NHL player with the Nashville Predators during the 2023-24 season. He played 68 games, scored 10 goals, and brought an element of physicality that made the Predators significantly harder to play against. He helped Nashville return to the playoffs for the first time in 2 years, showcasing his value in meaningful games. Last summer, Sherwood signed a 2-year contract with the Vancouver Canucks worth $1.5 million per season. At the time, it seemed like a low-risk depth signing, the kind of move that flies under the radar during the frenzy of free agency. But what Sherwood has accomplished through the first 26 games of this season has been nothing short of remarkable. 12 goals. Let me repeat that: 12 goals in 26 games. That's a 37-goal pace over a full 82-game season. For a player who had never scored more than 10 goals in a single NHL season, this represents a quantum leap in offensive production. But here's what makes Sherwood truly special. He's achieving this offensive success without sacrificing the physical, in-your-face style that defines his game. Sherwood leads the entire NHL in hits, not just among forwards, not just among players on his team, Among every single player in the league, he's throwing his body around with reckless abandon, finishing every check, making opposing players think twice before going into corners, and creating space for his more skilled line mates through sheer intimidation and physicality. This is the prototype of the modern power forward, a player who can contribute offensively while making life absolutely miserable for the opposition. In today's NHL, where skill and speed dominate the conversation, players like Sherwood are becoming increasingly rare and increasingly valuable. Now, let's connect the dots and examine why Kiefer Sherwood represents such an ideal fit for the Edmonton Oilers' specific needs. This isn't about acquiring another skill player to pad the stats during the regular season. This is about adding a dimension that's been conspicuously absent from Edmonton's lineup, a player who can thrive in the playoff environment where games are decided by will determination and physical dominance. Imagine Sherwood on Edmonton's third line, bringing energy, physicality, and now legitimate scoring ability. Picture him on the forecheck, wearing down opposing defensemen, creating turnovers through relentless pressure, and opening up space for McDavid and Draisaitl to operate. Envision him in a playoff series, delivering punishing hits, getting under the skin of star players, and providing the kind of sandpaper edge that championship teams require. The Oilers have skilled depth forwards. What they don't have is someone who plays with Sherwood's combination of physical intensity and offensive capability. He's not just a fourth-line enforcer who can throw hits, but offers nothing else. He's a legitimate top-nine forward who happens to play with an edge that few players in today's game possess. Furthermore, Sherwood's playoff experience, though limited, includes a series against these very same Canucks last spring when he was with Nashville. He scored a crucial goal that sealed a Game 2 victory for the Predators. He knows what it takes to perform when the stakes are highest. He's been there, done that, and proven he doesn't shrink in the moment. Of course, no trade discussion exists in a vacuum, and the harsh reality of the NHL's salary cap system means that acquiring Sherwood would require significant maneuvering from Oilers general manager Stan Bowman. Both Edmonton and Vancouver are operating with minimal cap flexibility, which complicates any potential transaction. Sherwood's current contract carries a cap hit of just $1.5 million, an absolute bargain for the production and style of play he's providing. However, he's in the final year of his deal, which means he'll be an unrestricted free agent this summer. Any team acquiring him would be doing so as a rental, betting that his contributions over the final months of the season and into the playoffs justify the asset surrendered. For Edmonton to make the money work, they'd need to either send salary back to Vancouver or move players to the AHL to create roster space. Young players like David Tomasek, Matthew Savoy, or Connor Clattenburg could be reassigned to the minors, though that would mean sacrificing valuable development time for prospects the organization has invested in. More likely, the Oilers would need to include an established NHL player in any deal for Sherwood. Names like Adam Enrique or Matthias Janmark have been floated as possibilities, though both come with complications. Enrique possesses a full no-trade clause, giving him complete control over his destination. Janmark has a modified no-trade clause with a 10-team list, convincing either player to waive their protection and accept a trade to Vancouver would require delicate negotiations. Beyond the salary cap gymnastics, there's the question of what Vancouver would demand in return for one of their most effective forwards. Given Sherwood's breakout season and his unique skill set, the Canucks would rightfully command a significant return. Any deal would almost certainly need to include draft picks, likely a second or third round selection, possibly both depending on the structure of the trade. Additionally, Vancouver would probably insist on a prospect with legitimate NHL potential. Names like Quinn Hudson or Bo Akey represent the caliber of young player that might pique the Canucks' interest. For Oilers fans, the thought of surrendering quality prospects and draft capital is never easy. These are the building blocks for sustained success, the insurance policy against the inevitable decline of the team's current core. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The window for winning with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl in their prime is finite and closing. Every season that passes without a Stanley Cup represents a missed opportunity that can never be reclaimed. Championship teams make bold moves. They mortgage pieces of the future to maximize the present. They recognize when the moment demands action, and they don't hesitate. The question facing the Oilers front office is whether they believe Kiefer Sherwood is the type of difference maker worth paying a premium price to acquire. Of course, any trade requires a willing partner, and recent rumors suggesting Vancouver might be open to moving pieces of their roster have sparked this entire conversation. But why would the Canucks consider trading a player who's been one of their most effective forwards this season? The answer likely lies in Vancouver's own salary cap constraints and roster construction challenges. With significant money committed to their core players and difficult contract decisions looming, the Canucks might view Sherwood as a valuable trade chip, a player whose current performance has elevated his market value to a point where the return could address other organizational needs. If Vancouver believes they can't afford to re-sign Sherwood this summer, trading him before the deadline makes strategic sense. Rather than losing him for nothing in free agency, they could recoup assets that help either now or in the future. It's the classic rental player dilemma that teams face every trade deadline. However, there's also the possibility that Vancouver looks at Sherwood's production, recognizes what a bargain his current contract represents, and decides he's too valuable to move regardless of the offers they receive. Trading within the division always carries additional risk. The last thing the Canucks want is to strengthen a direct rival and then face that player in a playoff series. Stepping back and examining the bigger picture, this potential trade scenario represents everything fascinating about the NHL trade deadline. It's about teams with different timelines and different priorities finding common ground. It's about evaluating present value versus future potential. It's about general managers making calculated gambles that could define their legacies. For the Edmonton Oilers, the calculus is straightforward. They have two generational talents entering what should be the prime years of their careers. They have a roster capable of competing for the Stanley Cup right now. What they lack is the depth and physicality to sustain success through 4 grueling playoff rounds. Kiefer Sherwood addresses that deficiency in a way few available players can. The risk, of course, is that Sherwood's current production represents an outlier season, a hot streak that won't be sustainable over the long term. There's also the possibility that his physical style of play could lead to injury, or that he simply doesn't mesh with Edmonton's system and personnel. These are the uncertainties that make trade deadline decisions so agonizing for general managers. But here's what we know for certain. Kiefer Sherwood is playing the best hockey of his career right now. He brings a dimension that the Oilers desperately need. His contract is affordable, and his acquisition cost, while significant, wouldn't cripple the organization's future. In the high-stakes poker game of NHL roster construction, this is the type of calculated risk that championship teams take. As we approach the trade deadline, the Kiefer Sherwood situation will be one of the most compelling storylines to monitor. Will the Oilers make an aggressive push to acquire him? Will the Canucks be willing to part with a player who's been so effective? Will another team swoop in and outbid Edmonton for his services? What's undeniable is that Sherwood represents exactly the type of player who can elevate a contender's chances when the games matter most. He's proven he can score. He's proven he can dominate physically. He's proven he doesn't back down from anyone or any situation. These are the qualities that define playoff performers, the attributes that separate champions from pretenders. For the Edmonton Oilers, the question isn't whether Kiefer Sherwood would make them better. He absolutely would. The question is whether they're willing to pay the price required to bring him in, and whether they believe that price is justified by the potential reward of finally capturing the Stanley Cup that's eluded this franchise since 1990. The clock is ticking. The trade deadline approaches. And somewhere in the Oilers front office, Stan Bowman is weighing these exact questions, knowing that the decisions he makes in the coming weeks could define not just the season, but the entire legacy of this era of Edmonton hockey. So, what do you think? Should the Oilers go all in on acquiring Kiefer Sherwood? Is he the missing piece that could finally push this team over the top? Or would the cost in prospects and draft picks be too steep for a rental player, even one performing at Sherwood's current level? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear your take on this fascinating trade scenario. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the deadline's most intriguing possibilities, smash that like button and let me know what other potential moves you want to break down. The trade deadline is approaching fast, and we're going to cover every angle, every rumor, and every deal that could reshape the playoff picture. Until next time, this is your home for no-nonsense hockey analysis. Let's see if the Oilers have the courage to make the move that could change everything.